Cleveland GM Andrew Berry said the team was advised by legal counsel not to contact the women directly, and this is a quote, out of concern it would be considered interfering with a criminal investigation, end quote. Here's Berry and ESPN Browns reporter Jake Trotter on Friday. Listen.
Yeah, Andrew, just to be clear, nobody from the Browns or representing the Browns spoke to any of the 22 women who've made allegations, correct?
Like I mentioned earlier in my opening statement, Jake, our attorneys advise us that reaching out directly could be considered interfering with a criminal investigation. But that's the reason that we did hire independent investigators to make sure that we could get that comprehensive and holistic perspective.
The investigators you hired did speak to the women?
I'll say the investigators that we hired were able to get a full perspective of all the cases. Yes.
Not speak to them.
I'm going to say full perspective of all the cases. I'm not going to go into necessarily the details of everything the investigators did, but they got a full perspective for all the criminal and civil cases, Jake.
This is what I want to know, guys. Deshaun Watson, the way this whole press conference was set up, the blanket reason that they can't get into details is there's an ongoing investigation. We'd love to. I'd be happy. Nothing would please me more than answering these questions as specifically as you like. Unfortunately, our hands are tied. There's an ongoing investigation. This is what I want to know from the Browns and Deshaun Watson. And then, I'll hold my tongue, right? When will you agree now to set up a press conference where we can all ask questions once this is resolved? Like, do you commit to that now? Because what winds up happening is with ongoing investigation, we can't commit, blah, 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 I'm innocent. Then you settle out of court, whatever. A lot of these cases, well, there's non-disclosure. Or else people ask questions about it and it's almost considered rude. Like, that's old stuff. I'm focused on the future. These things are fine for me, Chris, Jay, as long as the time comes when we get back together and ask these questions now that you can answer them.
Yeah, let me tell you what's not going to happen, Max. They're not going to have a press conference even after they settle these 22 pending civil lawsuits. It's not going to happen, and it'll always be an excuse, whether it's the NDAs, whether it's actual football that's going on. They can just run the line of this is the organization moving forward with Deshaun Watson. Now, I think the clearing of the criminal cases, both in Harris County and Brazoria County, that paved the way for the Cleveland Browns to get aggressive and try to make the move, because ultimately, if there's no criminal case, Deshaun Watson is going to play in the National Football League again.
Right.
And I think the Cleveland Browns settled on, okay, this is the situation. If he's going to play again, why not for our franchise when we're not sold on our franchise quarterback, Baker Mayfield? So I can understand how they got to this point. What I don't understand, Max, is if you make a $230 million commitment to a quarterback and you guarantee that amount of money, how the hell are the owner and his wife not at the press conference with the general manager and Kevin Stefanski? Like, people need to understand, when you guarantee that amount of money in the National Football League, that is the owner writing a $230 million check to be put in escrow and paid out according to the schedule of the contract. That's the reality of it. Now, listen, Jimmy Haslam might have a bunch of B's, but anytime you make a $250 million commitment, you probably want to stand in front of that and be around that, because you want to get the return on investment. And the fact that they weren't there and they did a separate Zoom saying that they were comfortable with the findings from the investigation, that part rubs me the wrong way. You can't defer to your football operations people in that situation, because we all know that's an ownership decision.
Andrew Berry's tried it out there to take the shots and the owners hide and then do a Zoom later. I agree with you, Chris. That's not the right way to handle it.
Nah. Jay,
this is Deshaun Watson at that same press conference. Will he settle his civil suits? Listen, and they're going to ask, you're going to hear the question and his answer.
Trying to settle the 22 civil suits?
That's not my intent. My intent is to continue to clear my name as much as possible, and that's what I'm focused on.
All right, so there he is. He's focused on clearing his name as much as possible. Here's the key word. Intent is not to settle the civil suits. He can say that now, right? We'll see what happens.
He's going to settle. He's going to settle. I mean, if you want, we're talking about 22 trials instead of one. I think that could be very disruptive to your season, and that comes along with a lot of attention, too, that then you have to answer. That puts Browns fans in very precarious situations as new evidence comes out per trial.
It's lawsuits, not trials, but yeah, lawsuits.
Yes, lawsuits.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. And the thing that really resonated with me yesterday, CC, thinking about this, and I don't know why it just hit me. You know, I was a professional athlete, obviously playing with the Bulls. I've had surgeries, 13-plus surgeries. I've had 2 massage therapists my entire life. I've had one that got vetted throughout the entire Bulls organization. It was the top tier, same one that worked with Michael Jordan. And then my one now that I've had, her name is Erin. She's with the New York Knicks. I work out there just because I've had so many issues. And we literally set up milestones. Hey, like, here are my goals that I'm working on this month as it relates to stretching and physical therapy and massage therapy, right? Like all these different things. And we hit these milestones. The fact that you've had 22 massage therapists that you've gotten through social media, me as a professional athlete, I'm like, wow.
You're not going to hit any milestones.
Yeah, that's not on the
22?
Jay, that's not on the up and up, man. When are you reaching out to massage therapists on Instagram through DMs? Like that doesn't happen. Something about that doesn't pass the smell test.
It doesn't.
When it comes to Deshaun Watson. Because like I said, I played in the NFL 11 years, and 3 different teams. On all of those teams, there are a handful of massage therapists that work with all the guys in the locker room. So when you go to a new team, who's your massage therapist? You start working with that individual because it's a very specific form of treatment that professional athletes need in order to get their bodies right and prepare for games. You don't find that type of expertise on Instagram. That's just not where it happens at. That's not where those relationships are developed. So for me, it's something about it doesn't pass the smell test. But Max, I do think it's a slippery slope when we have the presumption of guilt just based on the sheer number of accusations.
I disagree with that.
Sexual misconduct.
Go ahead, Jay. I'm sorry. I disagree with that last
I'm
part.
not saying he's guilty.
Yeah.
But,
No, I'm not saying you're saying that.
But Cece, when there's 22 people and their stories are all unique and different, and you see the history, the pattern, it presents a challenging case.
Pattern, no question about it.
It presents a challenging
Let's talk about the difference between the criminal and a civil suit, right? Criminal suit, the burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt, right? You have to be really sure this happened. A civil suit, you just a preponderance of the evidence. You 51-49.
More likely than not.
So, but in the court of public opinion, Chris, the presumption of innocence is a legal presumption. In the court of public opinion, if it was he said, she said, let's wait till the facts come out. If it's she said, he said, she said, I understand. If it's he said, and she said, and she said, and each one of this is a person, an individual, and she said 22 times, you have to turn off a part of your brain not to think something's going on here.
Well, here's the thing, Max. I'm not saying that there's not something going on. What I'm saying is, I'm uncomfortable saying that Deshaun Watson is guilty of sexual assault or sexual misconduct just based on the sheer number.
But
I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that.
I'm with you. I'm just saying you got a lot of explaining to do, right? A lot of explaining to do.
You do, Max, but here's the other thing that I will say. The fact that there wasn't an indictment when it came to the cases in Harris County and Brazoria County, like the grand jury saw whatever evidence that was out there and said, we can't move forward with this case, even taking it to a trial. I think that says something about the actual evidence that's out there. That's why I think it's a slippery slope.
But
to
some
just
crimes are hard.
Presume that he's guilty.
Some crimes are hard to prove.
Fair.
When 2 people are alone, one of the reasons one might set up a situation one-on-one in private is whatever happens is difficult to document, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that, and that's why you understand why criminally maybe it doesn't go forward. But the civil cases might, and more important, the court of public opinion is like, come on, man. It's 22 different women saying the exact same thing. You heard Jake Trotter in that clip with Andrew Berry, and Jake joins us now. Good morning, Jake, ESPN Browns reporter. Jake? I think we're having an issue with Jake's mic, maybe. Jake Trotter, are you with us?
Yeah, hey, Max, I can hear you. What's going on?
There it goes. What's going on, Jake? What was your biggest takeaway from the Browns press conference on Friday?
Yeah, my biggest takeaway was some of the things Deshaun Watson said. He came out and said that he had never sexually assaulted a woman in his life before, never harassed a woman. He has no intention of settling these civil lawsuits at the moment, and he has no regrets about anything that happened. He was asked all those questions, and I was kind of surprised how much he spoke on the topic, given the situation he's in legally. But that was my big takeaway, Deshaun Watson coming out and saying that I'm not going to settle right now, and this is something that could linger for a while because it doesn't sound to me like the attorney for the plaintiffs is interested in settling as well. So this could continue on for a while.
Jake, I'm curious, when do you think the league will come to a decision on a suspension for Watson?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's the big unknown right now. Are they going to wait until these civil lawsuits are resolved? If that's the case, guys, Deshaun Watson could be suspended if the league did suspend him in 2023. Because if neither side settles and this goes to trial, that's going to happen, I'm told, beginning in February or March of next year. And then at that point, if the league decides that it wants to suspend Watson, then that could be 2023. But usually in these types of cases, you would think a suspension, if it's going to happen, would be coming, in the next month or two. But that would depend on, again, whether the league wants this to be resolved, in terms of a settlement or in court. Otherwise, this could be something that the NFL just waits and sees what happens.
Talking with ESPN Browns reporter Jake Trotter on KJM. And Jake, as to the incumbent quarterback Baker Mayfield, there were reports going back to last season that there were contract talks between the Browns and Baker Mayfield. Can you give us a little bit of insight as to how far those talks got and whether or not this is a situation where Baker Mayfield potentially overplayed his hand when it came to getting a deal done?
Yeah, I don't know where that report is coming from. I mean, to my knowledge, talking to multiple people, there were never any contract talks last offseason. So, I think that the idea that there were these negotiations and they couldn't come to a deal last summer, I mean, that never happened. So I don't know that Baker underplayed or overplayed his hand, because they were never in a position to sign an extension with the team. And the team very much was in wait-and-see mode with Baker Mayfield, even coming off the 2020 season.
So what's next for Baker? Turning down $30 million a year, whatever. And I always refer back, talking to Jake Trotter, ESPN Browns reporter, Keyshawn J. Willimax, Chris Canty in for Keyshawn Johnson. I always think back to John Elway talking about, when he was talking about Osweiler back in the day, there should be a middle-class niche for quarterbacks. And had Baker signed a contract like that and 30 years above that, he'd be set. He didn't. And now what's next for him?
Yeah, I mean, again, Max, to my knowledge, he was never offered a contract of $30 million a year. So again, this is, talking to multiple people. I don't think he had a contract to sign or not sign. They just never entered into any negotiations last offseason. But yeah, I mean, if they had offered him that contract and he had signed it, I think things would be looking very differently for him going forward than they do right now, where, you have to wonder if he's going to have an opportunity to even start next season. He might have to go somewhere and be a backup and rebuild his value, similar to the way, Mitchell Trubisky did in Buffalo. Now he's a chance to be the starting quarterback in Pittsburgh. But, this idea that